In this video, I want to highlight the confirmation about The Last of Us Part 2. Yes, it will be at State of Play, and that is where we're going to be getting our big info drop. Want to take a look at what Naughty Dog put out. Outside of that, there are some great PlayStation 4 game deals available right now. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is seeing its steepest discount thus far, and Days Gone also has a pretty sizable discount, and they're doing a pretty good promotion for Greedfall, a recently released RPG over on Best Buy. We'll talk that, and The Surge 2 has gotten its launch trailer ahead of its September 24th release. We'll cover that at the end of today's video. First up, I do want to talk about Naughty Dog and The Last of Us Part 2. I've been speculating that we're going to get the big info drop at the State of Play event. That was confirmed, and it was confirmed by Naughty Dog that yes, The Last of Us Part 2 will be at State of Play. They put out a tweet saying, "I'm gonna find and I'm gonna kill every last one of them with a knife," with the caption Part 2 and State of Play September 24th, 2019, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Now, September 24th is also when Naughty Dog is hosting their media event for The Last of Us Part 2, so that is going to be a massive day for all of your Last of Us Part 2 info drop. I imagine here is where we're going to get a release date, maybe the announcement of all of the special editions and the various editions available, and we're obviously going to see a decent bit of gameplay as well. This is the kind of game that I really want to be kept in the dark with. We got that big gameplay demo last year at E3, and I don't feel like we need to see a lot more of the game. People were talking about seeing 3 hours of new gameplay at this media event, and I don't know, I just think that's way too much if it's a pure single-player gameplay. If it's something related to multiplayer, fine, you can do as much multiplayer gameplay as you want, as long as that is not in relation to story points and storytelling elements. That's absolutely fine. I just don't want big set pieces and moments in the game being spoiled by a lot of gameplay being put out. I mean, you can make the argument, oh, just don't watch the gameplay, but nonetheless, that gameplay spreads like wildfire. There's GIFs posted all over social media, all over Reddit. At some point, if something major happens in a gameplay demo, you're probably gonna see it whether you want to or not. It's really hard to kind of avoid that kind of stuff this day and age, but nonetheless, I just hope we get a release date. Initially, I thought that this was gonna be Sony's big 2019 game. Turned out that Death Stranding is gonna be their big 2019 game. Of course, that's coming out November 8th. In the case of The Last of Us Part 2, the rumor has been that it'll be coming out in February. I want to see that come to fruition because you want to get this game out a considerable amount of time before the release of the PlayStation 5. Kind of funny in that The Last of Us, the first title, was really the swan song for the PlayStation 3 as far as exclusives go. I know that Gran Turismo 6 came out after it, but not that many people played Gran Turismo 6. The Last of Us was really that major game. It came out in June of that year, and of course the PlayStation 4 followed up a release in November. The Last of Us Part 2, I'd like to see a release a little bit earlier. That's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't be all too surprised if Sony wants to turn around and release The Last of Us Part 2 in a definitive form with DLC or whatever the case may be as a definitive version on the PlayStation 5. And would you want to get that out at launch or sometime later on? Of course, with the first Last of Us, because it released in June and the PlayStation 4 released just a few months later, it didn't see its definitive version released until the following year in June or July. So maybe that's a similar time frame we're working with as well. Whatever the case may be, The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be a massive release, and it's exciting that we're finally going to hear some new information on the game because we have been left dry for quite a while. So come September 24th, we're going to have all the updates on that. Alright, moving on from that, I do want to cover a couple of great deals available right now as well. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a part of the Newegg Flash deal right now. It is down $20 to $40. It's typically $59.99, of course, and for some people, this might be too high of a price point. Given that this game came out north of 6 months ago, yeah, I can't believe that it's been over 6 months since the release of Sekiro, but yeah, it is a little bit older, and at this point, you would want to see games that old, you would want to see them a little bit cheaper. I mean, you see a game like Metro Exodus going for around $30, you would hope that Sekiro would be around that price point as well, but nonetheless, these From Software games usually hold up in price quite a while, coupled with the fact that it's an Activision release. Activision releases hold up in price for a while as well. Look at the Spyro Reignited trilogy, that's still going for a substantial price. $40 for Sekiro is really good from a content standpoint. You've got so much to do in this game, a decent bit of replayability, and it is just a high-quality game from a production standpoint. You know what you're getting into from a From Software standpoint. Obviously, it's a very challenging game. If you're expecting something easy, I would recommend some other game. If you want an easier action title, a Devil May Cry 5 might work really well. If you want that linear action-oriented experience, DMC5 is quite a good one. Sekiro, for those of you that want an easy component, I don't know, I'm just gonna beat that drum until the end of time. Stop asking for an easy mode. Just let this game be the challenging vision that From Software and the team over there had for it. we don't need to dumb a game like this down anymore. But $40 for it, I do think is quite good. I'll leave a link to the Newegg page and the deal for that in the description box below. Also, a relatively recent release, Days Gone is 38% off, $36.95. To give you guys an idea, Days Gone came out a month and a half after Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and it's less than the price of Sekiro. So just an interesting note there. Days Gone is a very good game. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a little bit underrated by critics. It seems like fans really enjoyed it, and commercially it did really, really well. It didn't do Marvel Spider-Man well, but it did very well in its own right. I believe it sold 3 million copies rather quickly, not in the first 24 hours like Spider-Man, but it did really well. And this is a very good open world game with a ton of content, and Ben Studio has done quite a good job in keeping the game updated, adding new things to do, new challenges, all that good stuff. Is the game perfect? Absolutely not. You have to bear in mind that this was Ben Studio's first PlayStation 4 game. Prior to this, they were working on reasonably big games, however, they were relegated to portable platforms. They did Golden Abyss, Uncharted Golden Abyss, that is, on the PlayStation Vita, and while that game was visually very impressive for the Vita, when you're developing a big open world game on the PlayStation 4, it's a whole different ball game, and you can see some of their issues there. With one of the issues with Days Gone, it kind of overstayed its welcome at times. I feel like if you shaved off around 5 to 6 hours of content, it would have ended up being a better game. Nonetheless, I feel like if you're picking this game up and you just go into it expecting a good open world action adventure title, you're gonna have your expectations met. It's just that Sony has set an incredibly high bar with their PlayStation 4 exclusives, whether it be a God of War, Uncharted 4, Spider-Man. Those games are next level titles, and yes, Days Gone isn't quite hitting that threshold. However, it is probably the threshold right below that, and it's a great game in its own right, and $37 I would say is a good buy. Lastly, I do want to note that Best Buy has got Greedfall for its regular $49.99 price point. However, if you buy it on Best Buy, you also do get a $10 gift card that you can put it towards anything else. Greedfall is a game that I've played a little bit of, and I like it as an RPG. However, going into it, just expect an RPG that doesn't have the production values of a big budget RPG production. It's not at the level of like a Witcher 3 or a Final Fantasy 15 from a production standpoint. However, those core elements of an RPG, it really has those elements down. From a decent story, decent voice acting, the combat is a little hit or miss for me at times. I haven't spent as much time as I would have liked to on the game thus far, but not super enamored with the combat at this point. But overall, I do think it's a fairly good RPG, and if you do just want a competent and well-made RPG, Greedfall definitely fits the bill. $50 is still a hefty price point, but it just came out a little over a week ago. Get a $10 gift card on top of that. I would say it's a pretty good buy all around, so we'll leave a link to that in the description box as well. And lastly, I do want to note that publisher Focus Home Interactive and developer Deck 13 have released a launch trailer for the action RPG and The Surge 2 ahead of its September 24th release. It was noted, prepare yourself to dismantle and take apart your foes on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC when The Surge 2 releases on September 24th. Deck 13's latest hardcore action RPG utilizes its signature limb targeting system, allowing you to rip and tear equipment from your foes using brutal executions. Witness the weapons, enemies, and executions backed by Sharon Van Eyden's cover of The End of the World in the Symphony of Violence trailer released today. The Surge 2 brings back The Surge's acclaimed combat system, allowing you to target and weaken enemy plot points so you can take the equipment for yourself or aim for a weak spot and finish the fights quickly. The Surge 2's launch trailer does span about a minute long. Pretty interesting trailer in terms of production, and I do think this game has the potential to surprise a lot of people. And the thing about a game like this is, if it's a game that comes out and it turns out to be really well, just because it's of that Soul style, I feel like it'll just garner a lot of traction based on being a quality game. Now, it's interesting because Surge 2 is out on September 24th. 3 days later, you've got Code Vein, and they both follow that challenging action RPG playstyle. However, the presentation is just completely distinct. That's why I think it's completely fine for these two games to be released right next to each other, because the Surge 2, it's got that sci-fi presentation. I feel like that's going to cater more towards a Western audience, where in the case of Code Vein, that game definitely has my interest, but it does have a more Japanese anime look that is going to cater towards some people a lot more than others. But whatever the case may be, I think both games are prepping up to be pretty good, and in the case of the Surge 2, not a lot of talk surrounding it right now. There wasn't a demo release for this game like there was with Code Vein. Hopefully, again, if it turns out to be pretty well, it just naturally gains that traction with people talking about it on social media, playing it on Twitch, streaming the game, talking about it on Twitter, Reddit, whatever the case may be. I do think the potential for the game to build up that way is definitely there. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, The Last of Us Part 2 has been confirmed for State of Play. We are going to get the big info drop come that. Great deals on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, as well as Days Gone over on Newegg right now. Greedfall's got a pretty decent recent deal over on Best Buy where you can get a $10 gift card, and The Surge 2 has gotten its launch trailer. That game is shaping up to be pretty decent, and I do think it could end up surprising a lot of people. Let me know, are you excited for The Surge 2 or Code Vein? Are you picking up both? Are you picking up neither? A lot of games coming out, so obviously you gotta make some decisions and skipping some titles over others. But nonetheless, that's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.